Welcome to another edition of Believe in Giants. Bob Papa, two-time Super Bowl champion Carl Banks, and it's tough to believe what happened on opening day at MetLife Stadium as the Giants kicked off season 100. Carl, I've been trying to make sense of it and trying to figure out what went wrong and what needs to happen here. And the last thing I came up with is everybody's just got to be better across the board. Plain and simple.
Yeah, Bob, that's a broad brush because I haven't seen the film, but I can tell you that one team was playing a regular season game and the other team was still in the preseason. And the Giants were that team that was in the preseason. They were not competitive. And let me just say there's a difference between playing hard and competing. They will tell you, the coaches will say, well, they played hard. They didn't compete. They didn't compete. I want to address the elephant in the room first. The quarterback did not play well. He was inaccurate. Balls were in the ground. He was out of sync with his receivers. Period. Point blank. He did not play well. All right. We're going to put that aside now. The team as a whole looked unprepared. And the thing that's really, really perplexing to me is that you have players in the locker room post-game. When asked, what did they do? What did Minnesota do differently? And to a player and coaches, well, no, they didn't do anything we didn't expect. They did exactly what we thought they were going to do. That's even more insulting. Because if nothing changed, and this is what you gave us, what you gave the fans, it's not good enough. It's just not good enough. I mean, listen, you can play hard, but you didn't do a good job. Like, yes, Minnesota has two really good tackles. Well, we have a premier pass rusher that we just paid for. We have another edge rusher who's supposed to be evolving into the next level. It's week 1, Bob. There's nothing after this game, and it's a long season, and I said it in our last podcast, it's a marathon, not a sprint. But this might be a sprint to the bottom if their effort, if they don't play and compete better, then it will be a sprint right down to the bottom, right, boom, rock bottom. And listen, I share some of the fan sentiment today. And I can tell you when we were lining up to go out to be introduced as the top 100 players, and a guy who never really comments on games because he doesn't watch many of them was Lawrence Taylor. He looked at me, and this is a true story, folks. If you want to know what we were thinking at halftime, Lawrence looked at me and he said, Carl, I could pick 22 of us right now and go out and play better than these guys. We'd win this game. And the youngest guy in that line was probably 50 years old. Lawrence Taylor looked at me and said, I can get 22 of us and go out there right now and whoop these guys' ass. And if he's looking at that and he doesn't see what looks like competitive football, it just bothers. And listen, I'm a fan first. I'm a former player. I'm a standard bearer. I'm part of the group that set the standard for what Giants football should be like. You're going to have some good games. You're going to have some bad games. But to start your season off looking the way you did, both sides of the ball, I mean, they're going to say, oh, yeah, well, there were some good plays. Sure. Not enough. Not enough when you're playing a team in your weight class. This is a team in your weight class, and they look like they took the next step, and you're still stuck in 2023.
Yeah, I
It
mean,
just looks that way.
I mean, listen, I know Sam Darnold was a first round draft pick, a high first round draft pick, and all of that. But I mean, he started 10 for 10. He was 13 of 15 at one point. And the only ball that got intercepted wasn't a ball he put in harm's way. It got tipped at the line, and then, Muasal made a nice play to intercept
Yeah.
it. But I gotta be, you know, I was really encouraged, at least, listening to Malik Neighbors after the game, in the sense that, you know, Daniel said he was trying to get me the ball. He had some impact on the game, but not what we all would have expected. The plan was to get me the ball more or whatever. But he said, it kind of could start with me. I dropped a pass. We dropped too many passes. We have to be better. Now, listen, that's a great thing to say during a presser, where taking ownership on himself. And this is a guy who just played in his first NFL game. And I took that as a positive. And, he was trying to back his quarterback and everything else. But it really does speak to it. Everybody could have played better in this football game. Now, you mentioned Daniel Jones. There have been no bigger supporters of Daniel Jones than you and I. And I believe that there's something there. There's something to be unearthed. We
Right.
saw glimpses his rookie season. We saw him take care of the ball, play smart in 2022. Saw him use his legs, his athleticism. But Carl, yesterday he didn't look like the same player. He looked more like the guy that had been battered and beaten last year. And it has to have you concerned by what we saw yesterday, because in the NFL, there are certain layup throws that you just have to make. You can't miss those because there's enough hard throws that have to be made anyway. And
yeah, whatever it is, he has to play better. Point blank. I mean, that's just, it looked out of sync. He and his receivers were not on the same page. Even when he scrambled, he's looking down the field, nobody's uncovering, and it was just an offense that was out of sync. Now, you might want to credit Brian Flores for what he did, but according to them, he didn't do anything that they didn't expect. Rarely blitzed. So the lack of production offensively has got to change. I mean, that's across the board. The penalties, like, okay, so you get a drive going and all of a sudden you penalize yourself back to midfield. Like, you're in the red zone and you penalize yourself back to midfield. Yeah, people can say, yeah, it's week one, yada, yada, yada. It was week one for the Vikings too. It's week one for everybody. So everybody came out of preseason, except this team looked like they were still playing a preseason game. And here's the thing that is really, like, frustrating, is that you have joint practices with the Detroit Lions. They are a team that's ready to get into a Super Bowl. They are there, right? You compete. Everybody felt great coming out of that game. Somehow, you look at Detroit in their first game, they look like the team that you really competed with. And then you guys come and play the Vikings, and you were a complete pushover. Where's that team that competed with the Detroit Lions? Where's that, right? Where's that team when you had joint practices against the Jets? Some of the Jets coaches came and said, hey, you guys got something with your offensive line. Where's that? Where's that? You talk about Malik Neighbors showing accountability after a game. And I'm going to contrast this with Kayvon Thibodeaux. I support him. He's my guy. When he's unjustly um, criticized or under siege, I will step up, just like I would for any of these other players. But you look at the difference in what Malik Neighbors did in his post game and your leader, Kayvon Thibodeaux, his interaction with Jordan Renan, what do you think he was going to ask you? Here's what leaders do. Kayvon Thibodeaux, this is what leaders do. If your team gave up a 99-yard effing drive and someone says to you, hey, you didn't get on the stat sheet, what's up? First thing you say is, you're absolutely right. I didn't. I got to figure out how I can be more impactful in the game. They might not have run a play your way. They might not have given you a chance to make a play. But what you want to say as a leader, the message you send is, you're right. You got to eat that, bro. You have to eat that. You have 0 on the stat sheet. Everybody sees it. There's probably a rhyme or reason to it, or maybe not. But for that moment, you say to yourself, I got to eat that. And then you say, as a leader, we have to be better. I got to figure out how I can be more impactful in the game, right? That quells all of that. But, the next question thing that you did with Jordan Renan, that's not the move you make after your defense looked the way it did. And everybody can say, well, they only hit a few plays on us. Couldn't stop the run. They got the big plays that they needed. And look, I've been in defenses where, they'll hit a play or two on you and they go back to their meat and potatoes. Sam Darnold didn't carve them up. He just hit the big 44-yarder, and then he hit a tight end up the seam. Well, you got those corrected. They wasn't coming back to those. That ain't the quarterback Sam Darnold is. So Deonte Banks gets caught flat-footed on a flag route. He's got outside technique. Stutter step, got him flat-footed, and he couldn't catch up. Moore on a cover 2, tight end up the seam. He don't know. So they hit it. I'm sure they made the adjustment, and he get it the next time, but they ain't no next time. The next time is stopping the run, setting the edge, and making tackles. Oh, and all of the passes out in the flat. That's the next time. That was their meat and potatoes attack on your defense. You couldn't set edge, you couldn't tackle, and you couldn't stop the dink and dunks 5 yards in the flat because you couldn't create any negative plays. So when someone asks you, the leader of your defense, you didn't have anything on the stat. You're not supposed to be defensive. You're supposed to say, you're right. I got to look and see how I can be more impactful. You haven't seen the film. You don't know. Well, you probably do know if they ran your way or they ran away from you and you didn't have a chance. But you publicly do not come into an interview defensive after the performance your defense put up. Simple as that. You say, we got to do a better job in starting with me because I got to look and see how I can be more impactful in this game.
Yeah, then you diffuse the whole thing. You diffuse it all.
But you're acting like Jordan Renan said something that wasn't true. No, this is what leadership looks like in the face of adversity. You don't fight it the way you did because all Jordan asked you is what was on that stat sheet. And what you should do as a leader is say, you're right, and we didn't play well. Because if you walk off the field, like if you let a team go 99 yards on you, 99 yards, and score a touchdown, you didn't have a good day. None of you.
And a big penalty to keep the drive alive. You're off the field. You're forcing a punt.
Yeah.
And
so
you got called for a face mask.
Yeah. So that's what that is. But this thing I said in our last podcast, we're going to have to live with some young mistakes. You saw some youth on display. Muasau, you had a few other rookie mistakes. And then you saw Phillips force a fumble. Phillips make a good open field tackle. Newbin playing really good at times. So they're going to get more consistent. Deontay Banks, he got caught flat-footed. All they need is one play, right? So you've got to understand that whatever the technique you're playing, you're outside. You've got to commit to that technique, right? Played a very good receiver. That was his biggest play of the game. But when they put you outside and they had somebody inside, that little stutter move got you flat-footed and he just kept going and you couldn't catch up. Commit to that, right? I think he'll be okay, but that play wasn't coming back. They hit those once a game. That's what Darnold is. They're going to give Darnold things that he can do, and then they're going to take some shots once they establish what their meat and potatoes was. And that's what they did. Conversely, we didn't see anything that this Giant offense, in particular, the quarterback did well. Like what could they give that he could do, that they could do well? A little slip screen got picked off and run in for a pick six. It wasn't their day, but they didn't make it their day. They didn't change circumstances. They didn't will themselves into competition. Right? You got sometimes when crap ain't going your way, your leaders, your best players have to be able to make a play. They got to be able to will you into something. And that wasn't there. And I think that's the part for me that was like, boy, this ain't the team that competed in practices with the Detroit Lions. Where'd they go? Like, you guys are cruising like it's preseason. And it looked just awful. And again, the part that really, really took me was when they sat in the locker room and said, they didn't do anything that we didn't expect. If that's not the biggest indictment, they didn't do anything you didn't expect, but this is what you gave on your opening day.
Bet Online is the world. What's that? Oh, no, I was going to say Bet Online is the world's most trusted betting platform, your number one source for everything football. Has every stat, matchup, live odds, spreads to bet on during the game. Think you know your stuff? Get in on the $200,000 mega contest. Pick 5 games against the spread every week. Chance for weekly prizes and a share of $200,000. Head to the website today to get in on the action. Bet Online. The game starts here. Carl, the thing, and listen, we know there's a lot of the fan base is very anti-Daniel Jones. We've been pro Daniel Jones. I think the thing that's really frustrating amongst many things is there were plenty of throws in the game that were, kind of NFL gimme versions. You got a back in the flat, the ball's behind him. You got, and I know everything's not perfect, and you got to play above the X's and O's, but there were some gimmies. You can't miss the gimmies, right? And and even if a guy catches it, but if you're hitting him in the wrong spot, the play's designed for that guy to get it and get upfield, not have to turn around the wrong way. At that point, you've lost all your momentum, and someone's going to whack you. And I could see why fans are frustrated. I mean, I know they're going to go back to work. They're going to have Washington coming up this week, and there's been a track record against Washington for the quarterback. But, I mean, we have to at least acknowledge those fans that are out there that have been saying, I told you so, that, round number 1, you kind of won that round.
I mean, you know what, Bob? It's not even a matter of winning the round. It's, these guys had their opinions of Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones pretty much validated that. Now we'll see what happens after this, but I can tell you this: and he can't continue to perform like that and expect to still be on the football field. Simple as that. Now you can't change all 22 players out, and there's probably some good things in there, but the one thing that's not in there is an attitude to go out and win a game or to even compete in a game with a team in your weight class. Washington won't be the same either. They're going to come out with their hair on fire. If Dan Quinn has anything to do with it, they're going to be putting the pressure on Daniel Jones too.
Well, it's not like he hasn't gone against Daniel Jones twice a year
Yeah.
for the last. Now, obviously, in Dallas, he had Micah Parsons, Diggs. He's got a lot better defensive personnel in Dallas than he necessarily has with Washington, but he certainly has an idea on what he needs to do to defend him.
Sure. He's undefeated against him, basically. So doesn't matter unless this giant team plays better. They've got, I mean, because they're going to get punked. Every team that they play going to feel like they can punk them. If the Minnesota Vikings can do what they did, and you did not put up much competition to even keep yourself or to will yourself in the game, everybody's going to think they can do the same thing. Either that or you're going to enter the next game and be about your business. Be about refusing to be as bad as you were on your opening day. You've got to be able to send some type of message. You've upgraded your talent. Your best players, when things aren't going right, figure out how to make a play. And that's also relates to coaching. Figure out how your best players can be more involved to change the game or to get you back in it. Dexter Lawrence started off setting the tone, right? So they fixed that. He probably would have had 3 sacks. Well, if he's getting all the attention, where are your edge guys? Where are your edge guys? There's a one-on-one somewhere. Somebody's got to make a play. Just not what you want Giants football to look like on opening day, and it's just a continuation of 2023. That's not the way you're supposed. You have to give a better effort. People will understand, even if they're frustrated. They'll understand a loss when you fight your ass off, right? You played hard, but you didn't compete. Everybody ran hard. Everybody did all of that cliche stuff. But you got to compete in the NFL if you want to get yourself out of the fucking gutter. You got to compete. You got to fight to get out the gutter. Not trying hard, but you got to fucking fight. You got to compete if you want to get out. And that wasn't competing. And what makes it worse for me is that when all of you stand in front of your lockers and say they didn't do anything we didn't expect, that's an indictment because you didn't compete and you knew they didn't do anything that you didn't expect. You guys should be doing something that we didn't expect. Running around like your hair is on fire and competing. Didn't happen. 17 games, 16 left. We're going to see. But there's no excuses. And I'm broad brushing this, and I'm sure when I look at the tape, there are going to be some positive plays. You know, Bobby Okereke, when he recovered the fumble on Phillips, that's hustle to the ball. Even the kid, Muasau, his interception, that's hustle to the ball. Those are both one in a row. Like, where's the rest of that? Where are you guys competing as a group, as a collective? Where's your collective attitude to compete? Right? And that's just disappointing. I mean, I don't play but on a day, and it has nothing to do with this 100th anniversary of 100 greatest players in the franchise's history, but just the fact that it's opening day for you, right? We've established what we are as players, and part of what we establish is a standard for what Giants football should look like and should be like, and what fans come to expect in wins or losses, right? People can be upset, but if you compete your ass off, they understand it. Then they look forward to the next game. Right now, they're not. I got a timeline full of people say that they're tuning out, finding something else to do on Sundays.
I mean, listen, Carl, we're in the booth. It's opening day. 100 seasons. Cool celebration Friday. Cool celebration at halftime. And early in the fourth quarter, the stadium was emptied, and there was just Vikings fans in there. And there's, people sitting in traffic, probably, and hitting us in our timeline about in the car listening, leaving. I mean, that's a standard that's not acceptable. And
No.
And you can understand it's not acceptable from the top to the bottom. And you can understand the fans' frustration with that.
Yeah, I mean that what you put out there on Sunday should be the last time fans ever see that. Should be the last time. Because I'm telling you now, playing hard and competing are two different things. You want to get out of the gutter, you fight your ass off and you compete. You want to stay in the gutter and just keep slinging mud over your shoulder? That's working hard. Well, I was moving mud around, but you didn't move it out of the way. You just moved it to the next spot so you can stand in it. Learn how to compete.
I think that's a perfect way to end it, right?
Let's do it. Yeah.
All right, we're going to be back later in the week as we begin an in-depth preview of game number 2 against the Washington Commanders. And you'll see what kind of changes are going to be made or what potentially adjustments that they'll have. And we'll dive into all that later in the week. How do we like to end this thing?
Tell a friend to tell a friend.
Believe in Giants.
Believe in Giants.